Alright, so first we'll create our project. So I'm in Visual Studio 2022 and I'm going to select .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid application. Let's name it, I don't know, fresh wedge card, something like this. I'm very bad at naming these things and for this kind of creativity actually. So fresh wedge card, create this project with .NET 9. The main project is created. Now we'll first create all other projects, our API project and shared project to have our DTUs and all. So right click, add a new project. First we'll add API project, that is going to be ASP.NET Core Web API. Next, let's say freshvegcard.api. Next, .NET 9, authentication none, and we'll keep everything default. Then we are going to create one more project. For this is going to be a class library project, freshvegcard.shared. Here we are going to have our DTO and common utility classes, extensions, these kind of stuff. Again, .NET 9 only, and we are good. Now next thing, we need to reference the shared project from both of these projects. Let's do this. So we have two options. To do this, we can simply click on the dependencies, right click, add project reference. We can select the shared, okay. And then there is one more approach. We can simply drag the project and drop in the dependencies. So now we have referenced the shared projects from our both the projects, Fresh Wedge Card, which is our .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid application, and then this API project, which is ASP.NET Core API project. Alright, so save everything, close all tabs. Now first thing, we will work on our API project because we already saw the demo. We know what all we need in this application. Alright, so first thing, we'll set up our database related stuff. So we are going to set up entity framework core, then we'll add our entities, then we are going to set our DbContext. After that, we are going to work on the business logic service layer. Then we'll work on the minimal API endpoints. Right, and after that we'll move to the UI side of things, the .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid, that mobile application. All right, let's start working. So in API project, right click, manage NuGet packages, browse, and here I'm going to install entity framework core.SQL server. First is this one. Let's install, apply, accept, let it install. And then second, I'm going to install the entity framework core.tools, this package, because we are going to use our code first migration, so we need this to run migration commands. Apply, I accept, and we are good. Cool. Now in our API project, I'm going to create a new folder. I'll call it data for our database related stuff. So inside this data, I'm going to create one more folder, entities, for our entities. So first we'll start creating the first entity, which is going to be user entity. So I'm going to create a class, user class. Let me zoom it out. Cool. So here first we need ID. Let's have ID, which is going to be key, primary key for our entity. Then we are going to have username. So let's say name. You could store first name, last name, that is up to you. Then we are going to have email, we are going to have password, and we can have other stuff as well. For example, we can have contact number. So let's say mobile, then password. This is going to be a hashed password, so we can call it password hash. And I guess we are good with the basic stuff. We'll keep it simple. The name is going to be required. Let's have a max length of maybe 20. Email is also going to be required with max length of, let's say, 150. And mobile, we can maybe have it as optional. And here we can just set max length of 15 or 20. Then password hash, this is going to be required. We'll skip max length. We'll see if we need to add any other thing, we'll add later. So user is done. After user is created, user will be able to see the products. When we say products in this context, these are going to be vegetables and fruits. This is what our application is about, right? We'll create one more class here, public class. Let's call it product only. Okay. So here, first we are going to have our ID. Then we are going to have name of the product. ID is going to be key. Then name is going to be required with a max length of, let's say, 50. After that, we are going to have an image URL for this. Let's say image URL. And let's not have it as required. I think we should have it required, because if that is not required, our application will not look good. We want our application to be look good. The image URL required, and here also we can have max length around 200. This is going to be a URL. Then we are going to have string unit, measurement unit. That means this is by per piece or per kg or per gram, something like that. Okay. Or before this, let's have price. We'll say decimal price. So using this, we'll have that this price is for this unit. For example, let's say 1 kg onion, 1 dozen banana. So this price and this unit is going to be this kind of stuff. All right. So ID, name, image URL, price, unit. I guess that's all what we need. Decimal, we are good. No need to add anything. Unit, I think let's have this also as required with a max length of something like 10, not more than this. 10. Save it. Cool. Now when our product is ready, user will be able to see the product and create the order. All right. So let's create a entity for our order. So here we are going to have order. In this first thing we need an ID. So order ID. We'll say this is going to be key. Then here, who is the user who is placing this order? The user ID. This is actually required. So we are okay. And here we'll have a navigation property with this order. This user ID will belong to this user entity. Let's set up this thing. So here we'll say user and user. And this is going to be virtual. All right. Now, who is the user? What is the order ID? Then order date. So here we are going to have date. All right. Then what is the total amount? Public decimal total amount. All right. After this, we can have some additional notes. So let's say remark, or let's just have notes. This is going to be nullable. Let's have some max length of 100 or 200, or maybe let's call it remarks only. All right. After this, we are going to have we can manage statuses as well. So for this, we can simply have a public enum status, or let's say order status. And inside this, we can have a couple of statuses. Let's say first we can have placed, accepted, or rejected, and let's say delivered. Something like this, you can play around with this and you can have your own statuses, whatever status you want to manage. So now this can be used from the .NET MAUI application as well. So let's move this order status enum to shared project. So in shared project, I'm going to create a constants. Inside that, I'm going to create this enum. This is kind of constant only, but cut it. And here we'll simply have this thing. Save it. Now in our order entity, we can simply have public order status. And we are going to have status. And here we'll set a default value. Because whenever this order is being created, this is placed. So we'll say order status dot placed. And what is the problem here? String to, yeah, sorry, string. Let's store this in string. Here also we can have required with the max length of whatever we have in these order statuses. So let's have 15. All right. After status, we are good. Okay. Now with order, user must have selected some address. Or maybe before that, this order will contain some items, right? So first let's create order item, then we'll work on address. We'll say public class order item. All right, here also we are going to have an ID. Let's have this as long ID. This is going to be a key. Now this order item will belong to one order. So we are going to have this property here. So public int order ID. And with this order ID, let's set up our navigation property. So this is our order. After that, in this, we are going to have a product ID, int product ID. Then we are going to have product name. Now here with this product ID, if we have this product ID and we'll have our join to get the information of this order item, there is a problem. What happens if we have ordered something and after that the main product was modified? Let's say name was modified, icon, image, URL, price or unit, anything was modified, and after that if we try to access our previous orders, then if we have this join, then we might get different result. For example, maybe the price was different. So right now the moment when I purchased that, let's say it was in Indian rupees, let's say the onion, it was 50 rupees per kg, but now the price has changed, it is 60 rupees per kg. So if we will just have this product ID and we'll try to join it to show our previous order items, then we will get 60, but that is not correct. We have not paid 60, we only paid 50. So in that case, for these kind of scenarios where the main entity could be changed and we need to keep track of some kind of history, so we actually copy over the details at that time. So this order item, we will have all the related information. And then one more case, let's say that product was deleted, that is no longer available. Then also if we have just primary key, then also we will not be able to get the values. That's why for these kind of scenarios, we actually have a copy of these things. When we ordered with this order item, we'll have information of the entire product. Okay. So we have product ID, which then, sorry, then we have this product name, which was string. Then we are going to have product price. Okay. After that, we are going to have the quantity. What quantity user has purchased. Then the unit, of course, the string unit. And with this, I guess we are good. From product, we have ID, name, image, price. We can also have image URL. Yeah, let's have. it as well. So here we'll say simple string product image URL. Now our order item is ready. So inside this order entity, we are now going to have a collection of these order items. Let's call it items and make it virtual. Let's have a default value as empty. Cool. Now when user is placing the order, user need to select delivery address, right? So for this thing, we need to have one more entity for user address. We'll say public class address. Here we need to have a key. So let's say ID, which is going to be a key. After that, this address belongs to this user. So we'll have our user ID. Now, one user can have multiple addresses. That's why we are having a separate uh, class entity for this. To have this one-to-many relationship, one user can have many addresses. Okay, so public user and user. This is our navigation property setup. Now, after user ID, we are going to have the actual address. So let's do this. Let's rename this to user address. And here we are going to have field as address. Now this is going to be required with a max length of, we can have, I don't know, maybe 250. Now here is the thing. For this address, you can break it in multiple things. Let's say street address, city, state, zip code, all these things. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just having this address, nothing else. All right. Then user can name these addresses. So we are going to have a name of this address. This is also going to be required with a max length of something like 20. So the home address, office, or any temporary address or whatever user wants to name it. Then we are going to have a flag here, which will say if this address is default for this user. The user can set this thing if this address is default for me. Right? Cool. So now this user address, this order item is going to have user address as well. We are going to have int user address ID. Now here, what will happen? The same thing which got applied to product and order, same thing is going to be applied for user address. So for example, what would happen? Let's say right now I am at some place. I have set my home address. Let's say I am on living somewhere on rent, on rental property. I have added that address. Now I placed some order. I received the goods and everything is fine. Now after 1 month, I move to some new address. So I will simply go to the application. I'll modify my address. Okay, that means this address will be different. Now after that, if I go to my order history and I fetch this previous order, if we just have this order user address ID with this foreign key with the user address, it is going to show me the current address. But this is not correct for that particular order, right? It was some previous address which does not exist right now. So for this case, same thing, we need to keep track of these things. So we'll simply have actual address here, public string address. Now if you have multiple things, let's say that state, city, zip code, pin code, and street address, all these things, you will copy over all these. Cool. Save everything. Now we can skip these things if you want to, but I'm just having this thing and the product ID in order item. All right. So looks like we are good now. All our entities are ready. Cool. Now we can go to user and we can simply add one more thing here, user addresses. Public I collection user address. Here we'll say user addresses. Save everything and I guess we are done with our entities. Now let's move these entities to one file, uh, one entity per file. So this is the approach I follow. I simply write everything in one file, then I simply move this. I'll simply move this to move type to product.cs, move type to order.cs, then move type to order item.cs, move type to user address.cs. And now all our entities are ready. Cool. The next thing is to create a EF core entity framework core DbContext. We already installed the NuGet packages. Alright, so in this data folder only, I'm going to create one more class and let's call it data context. The name is up to you. So in order to make it as a EF core DbContext, this should be derived from DbContext class. Then we'll simply generate our constructor, this DbContext options, and we'll provide our data context as this generic parameter. Now we are good. Let's add all our DB sets. Public DB set. First we have order, orders, order entities. All right, let me make a duplicate of these. Then we have order item. So order item. This is going to be order items. Then we have product, products. After that we have user and user address. So user, users, and then user address and user addresses. Save it. Now we are good. Our data context is ready. Now we will uh, register this data context in our program.cs. So first in program.cs, let's remove the default endpoint. So we'll delete this. Now we are good. Here before builder.build, we'll simply say builder.services.add DbContext. This is going to be our data context. Okay. Now in this we need to provide our options. Here we'll say options dot use SQL Server because this is the database we are using. And for this we need to provide our connection string. Okay. So we need to get our connection string. We are going to have our connection string in our app settings. So we have this app settings.json, then we have app setting.development.json. In development.json, we are going to have our connection string. Let's say default, the name is up to you. You can name it whatever you want. So here I'm going to add my SQL Server's configuration. You need to add yours. So I have installed the default instance of SQL Server. So for this, I'm going to say data source equals dot, which is default. You can have localhost as well. Then initial catalog, which is database name. Let's say fresh veg cart. Then I am using Windows security. So if you are using the credentials, then you can have user ID and password. For me, this is integrated security true. And we'll simply say encrypt connection string to false. I'm not setting it up any encryption for this thing. Cool. Now we just need to use this. So here inside this or outside this, it's up to us. So we'll say connection string equals builder dot configuration dot get connection string, and here we need to provide that name which we just added. So this name, it should be here default. Now we have this connection string, so we are going to set this connection string and we are good. Now our DB context registration is done. Cool. Now first we'll set our seed data. So we are going to have our seeding data for this application, all the products, vegetables and fruits and all those. So all those are using some images. So for images, what I'm going to do, I have added those images on this GitHub on my profile. So I'm going to drop link of this in the description box. You can get this from there. So here I have a repository images icons, this one. Okay. And inside this, we are going to have this vegetables. And here we have all these image icons. And I got these from flat icons. These are the links. So all these things. So we are going to use these URLs. So for that seeding data, we have multiple approaches. We can have anywhere, but let's go to the product, and in here only I'm going to create a static method for seeding. So public static product array, let's say get seed data, something like this. Right? And we'll return from here. So first thing, we will need to have our image URL is happening. Oh, no point of having private here. So we'll say const string image URL. Okay, I'm going to have this image URL, and this should be this image URL. This is going to be the base image URL, right? This GitHub URL. Let's say base image URL, and we are going to have this thing, vegetables with the trailing slash. Cool. Now I have prepared the seeding data. I'm simply going to copy the data here. Let's say product array products. All right, so I have this. Let's do all this image URL prefix. So we have these products with ID, name, image URL, unit, price, all these things. And then from here, we'll simply going to return these products. Cool. Now we just need to use this seed data. For this, we'll go to our data context. Here, I'm going to override on model creating method. And inside this, we can simply say model builder is parameter dot entity of product, and with this we can say has data, and then we can simply call our product dot get seed data method. Save everything, and now we are good. Our seeding data is also ready. The database type side of stuff is ready. We just need to add migrations so that we can have this data in our database. Right now everything is in code only. So we are going to run the migration. For migrations, what I am going to do, I want my migrations inside data folder. So we'll go to package manager console here to run our migration command. You can simply go here in tools, you get package manager and package manager console. So this is the same thing. Here I'm going to say add migration, but before that we need to do two things. First, the API project should be as startup project. So we need to set the set as startup project, because here we have our entity framework core DLLs, or entity framework core NuGet packages. So this supports migration. MAUI project does not support migration. So we'll select this as startup project, and then in package manager console, this default project, we'll set the API project as default project as. Then we are going to add our migration. We'll say this add migration, then name of the migration. It could be anything. Most of the time we'll simply say initial migration, so just initial. Now if I press enter here, it will create a migration directly inside API project. But we need these in data folder. We can define this, add this option -o, which is for output directory. So we'll say -o data/migrations. Press enter. Now it is going to create migrations folder inside data folder, and then it is going to add those migrations inside this migrations folder. Let's wait for it. So it's done. It is saying about decimal properties, has precision and all. Okay. Okay, we can skip this. We just need to set this precision for 2 decimal points basically. We can set it. Cool. So now if we check, we have this migrations folder, and yeah, let's quickly go through it. So we have products with ID, name, image, URL, unit, price. Then with the primary key, then we have users, ID, name, email, mobile, password, hash. Then we have our orders. Okay, then we have our user addresses, order items, and then we have our seeding data. Cool. So now we are good. We can run these migrations against the database. So for that, we can simply say update database -v, so that logs are verbose. We will see everything here. And it is running all the commands against our database. So it is going to create a database for us, create these tables, and then insert this seeding data. So it is done. Now we are good from the database standpoint. All right. So we have created projects. We are working on API project. We added entity framework core NuGet packages. Then we added our entities. Then we added our database context. Then we added our seed data for products. After that, we have created our migration. Then we ran these migrations. So now we are good with database side of stuff. Next thing, we'll work on the service layer for our application.